All right. Hello. Welcome to episode 2 of The Grateful Gamer. There's a name change. I will explain that here in just a sec. This episode, my plan is to talk about the difference between remake and remaster, which should be fun. That's always funny and fun to me, just thinking about it. But before that, since this is the second episode and I've already changed the name of my podcast here, and I even have a logo already. Now, originally, the podcast name in the first episode was called Germcast, and I liked it. I thought it was cool, but it was missing and that was actually thought up by Dark Alchemy Zix. He came up with that name Germcast, and I liked it. The thing that was off for me a little bit about it, and I had a hard I liked it right away, but I was also like something's a little off, something's missing, and it was mostly the gaming. And we had actually also thought of Germcast Gaming, and it just didn't feel right to me. Even Germcast Gaming, there was just something off about it, you know? So I asked my sister to make me a logo, and I remember she actually came up with another name for me called The Positive Gamer, or Positive Gamer. And I liked it, and, understanding the thoughts that I usually go through and whatever is how I just like games, I don't normally I don't, get super negative about games and stuff. Like, I'll say I think a game is crap if I really think it's crap, but anyway, so she said The Positive Gamer, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I like it, but there was something off about it, I was like, I couldn't really figure it out right away. It took a little, and I was like, I like it, but I don't want to use it because I just felt like it didn't fit me. Which is weird because it does in a sense, but then, so my sister was coming up with the logo, and then she came up with another title. My sister's really creative and awesome. Helps me with a lot of stuff. While she was making the logo, she also, this picture here, I always think, because I originally, I don't have these uploaded audio only yet to other sites. Start on YouTube first. But the logo she came up with, she just came up with the Grateful Gamer, as she was making this logo for me. And I was like, you know what, that makes far more sense. And there was a couple of things that are cool about that, other than the name just being cool. But Grateful makes a lot of sense, and it's not positive. And the reason that I liked it far more than Positive Gamer is because I'm not a positive person, at all. But hate life, so that's just to simplify it and not get into that. That's for our separate podcast, but I'm not a positive person, so it was weird to me because I totally understood it as a gaming portion of that, but I was just like, I just don't like it. I'm not positive, so when she came up, while she was making this logo, she came up with the Grateful Gamer, and I was like, there you go, that's perfect. And the bonus of that, the side bonus for that, is it ends up being GG. It's pretty funny. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so funny. Because that's actually kind of partly how when I came up with Germs Gaming, it also ended up being GG, All right, so anyways, let's get into the actual subject for what I wanted to talk about this podcast. And this is another thing I've actually been wanting to talk about for a while now, because every time it comes up, it makes me so mad. All right, remaster versus remake. And then I actually, just today, I saw a comment that made me start going, oh, you know what? All right, I can see that point of view. But my original thought and idea on this, and I still mostly think this way, and especially since the way I saw it, originally, remaster and remake meant the same thing. And then one day people decided they meant something different. This is how stupid the internet is, okay? It drives me freaking crazy. It makes me so mad. Because one day people will just make up a new definition, and then all of a sudden it's a whole new word with a different meaning. But originally, remaster and remake always referred to the same thing. If you were talking about a remaster, you were talking about a remake. They meant the same thing, okay? Now I'm going to give you an example. You don't believe me. I'm going to give you a perfect example. And the reason I have this mentality is because I remember it was I can't remember what came out after, but anyways, the first remaster I ever experienced was one of my most favorite games ever from PlayStation 1. Can you guess it? Resident freaking Evil, man, the original Resident Evil. And the remaster was put on GameCube, and it was absolutely incredible. The remaster of the GameCube version that came out on I can't remember, I think they put it on PS3, right, and Xbox 360. I can't remember for sure. I believe they did. But they're on the current gens, or well, the just past gen. Oh my gosh, I haven't caught up with the new gens yet. But Resident Evil, it was called Remaster. Resident Evil Remaster. And I think this is so funny. And I actually did just a really quick look up because I was curious. I could have done more investigating, I guess. But I think it was like the very first article I came across for Resident Evil Remaster. It caught my attention immediately because the irony of everything, it just makes me laugh so much, dude. So here's the headline. This was Polygon back in 2015. And their headline for this is Resident Evil HD Remaster Review. Okay? So first of all, not only does it have Remaster in the title, but it also has HD Remaster. Like, that is just freaking hilarious, man. And then in the first line of this review, here's what it says in the first sentence. Oh wait, no, it's two sentences. Okay, wait. Oh, no, it's literally the second sentence then. Okay, I must have just skimmed really quickly through the first sentence. It's super short and dumb. It just says it's a game with a lot of history after all, which is, it's no wonder I kind of didn't remember what that said. So the second line, right here, check this out. This is with the headline, Resident Evil HD Remaster Review. And in the second line here, this is technically a remake of a remake. Which I was like, this is hilarious. And this proves my point, okay? And I'm not like... It's a perfect example of what I was saying. Originally, these two words basically meant the same thing, okay? Like, if you ever said remaster or remake, people knew what you were talking about because it meant the same damn thing. I don't know when it started. I can't remember which game. Because it happens every time. Every time there's a difference between a so-called remake and a remaster now. Now people, oh no, that's not a remake, that's a remaster. Oh, that's not a remaster, that's a remake. It's like the stupidest argument that, it's so horrible. I just thought this was so funny. I wish I remember when remake started being defined as something completely different. Because it wasn't right away, that might have only started happening in the PS4 generation, I don't think it was happening in PS3 because they didn't really have a lot of remasters, Basically, so here's what's up, right? Apparently now, okay, by definition of stupid people on the internet, and I'm not gonna not say that because it is stupid. I think just this morning I came across a comment. It was a comment on one of these articles, and I was like, all right, that's a point I can get with. Like, I get that. But just generally speaking, the internet made different definitions for these just one day. It just happened. They didn't used to mean something completely different. And it reminds me of the word noob. You know the word noob, right? Now, if you were around when the word noob was invented, you probably remember this. But there were I don't remember how many ways people misspelled the word noob. Even I misspelled it because when it was a new word, nobody knew how to spell it because everybody was spelling it differently. I'm not even kidding, okay? This is a true story, all right? People would spell the word noob differently all over the internet. But it always meant the same thing. It's just a new player, right? It's just some newbie that doesn't know what they're doing and they suck for them, generally, right? Like, just to simplify it, but that's what noob meant. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but nowadays, you will never see people arguing over the different definitions of the different spellings of noob. But for a while, there was like a year or two where people would be like, oh no, if you spell it this way, it means this. And oh no, if you spell it this way, it means this. It's one of the stupidest things I have ever seen people argue over on the internet when literally it was just a typo. It was a misspelling of the word. And then all of a sudden, all these different spellings of the same exact word that meant the same damn thing had new meanings out of nowhere. Like, I'll never forget that. God, I hate the internet sometimes, man. Seriously, dude. It's just so ridiculous. So, remake and remaster. Now, apparently, remaster is basically an HD port, right? And of course, people will defend the companies that are doing these things. Now, I'll give you an example. But Well, I was gonna say something else on top of that. The remake. Okay, so the remake is basically when they take a game that's already existed and then fully redo it in a different way. Kind of like Final Fantasy VII, for example, right? Like even I would not call Final Fantasy VII a remaster, but you could. You could if you were going by the original freaking definition. Okay, if we were going by the original definition of both remake and remaster, it wouldn't matter. It would be one. It would be either or because they both mean the damn same friggin' thing. You sons of bitches. So, so, so there's these technical details, technical arguments that people can make, and I'll be like, yeah, all right. But no, if we didn't have this stupid argument on the internet now out of nowhere, where people decided to make up a completely different meaning for these words, then I would easily call the new Final Fantasy VII a remaster, right? I would have. So God, I hate this fucking world. Anyways, where was I gonna go with that? So what really makes me mad is specifically the HD ports, and it's not because I'm against them or anything. Like I like the HD updates, the small little minor things they do, and that was, well, you know what? I never considered the HD upgrades a remaster. They started calling them that more lately, right, in the past year or so. But they used to call them HD. Do you remember that? This is what makes me so mad about it, okay? And I'm just like, what the hell? So, now HD games get called remasters instead of HD games, right? You remember the games used to have HD in the damn title. Even this headline couldn't even get the remaster correct for the fucking Resident Evil game. They didn't call it Resident Evil Remaster because that's what it's called. They called it Resident Evil HD Remaster. Just like, son of a... Oh my gosh. I did forget though. I was going to talk like Resident Evil on GameCube. Or I don't know if you ever played it. But that game on GameCube back then was... Even I loved my PlayStation. I can't remember if that was PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 1. I think it was PlayStation 2 and Xbox. I forget. It was so long ago. I mean, I could look that up. I don't really care. But I remember that game, Resident Evil on GameCube, was so incredibly impressive visually that I remember back then saying the GameCube has the best graphics out of any of the current consoles. I'll never forget that. The thing about it that's funny though is basically Resident Evil Remaster on GameCube was the best looking game by far. By like many miles way ahead of any other game on that system. That's what's kind of funny about it. But just the fact that it could pull that off, I was like, holy crap, because it was incredible. And it was such an enormous upgrade from the original game. Oh man, what a beauty. So I guess I sort of understand like the headline of this Resident Evil HD Remaster because I believe they took the GameCube version and then HD'd it, right? So it was still the GameCube version, which is, whatever, and then they just kind of crisped it up, right? So so the thing about that too that's interesting to me is people make all these weird technical arguments about this stuff, and I'm like, and they'll be like, no, it's not a remake unless you change the game, which is just not true. I mean, again, it's because of the only reason people can make these arguments is because they decided to change the definition to fit their mistake of not understanding that both these words used to mean the same damn thing. That's what's so stupid about it, okay? I'll never get over that, man. I'll never get over it. The only thing that sucks now that I can think about that's really funny to me is that the only reason these differentiations will probably stick around is because even developers are using it. So like I said, instead of calling their game HD, now they call it remaster, which is nonsense. I left a comment open on my monitor so I could go over it, but I'm not ready to go over it yet. I know I had so many points, man. I did. But the problem with this is, and I was looking at the time of this recording so far, and it's really short. And I was like, damn, I thought I was going to have an hour to talk about this. I have a little bit more to say, but I'm just like, Anyways, that was just something that popped up in my head. So since I forget what the hell I had a whole lot of, oh my gosh, dude, this thing has been on my mind for so long. Okay. So I just don't have them in my head right now, you know? Like, I think about it all the time, so sometimes I have it in my head. All right, let me read this. Let me browse this comment, skim this comment real quick that made me think, oh, you know what? I can get that. So, let's see what we got here. Somebody, because I responded to an article, and, you know, of course, my response was the two words used to mean the same thing, which is what I'm talking about right now. Then the people on the internet decided to give them different meaning in the same stupid way that people give different spellings of new different meanings. It's pure nonsense. And I got ratioed hard. I don't even have like a single like on that comment, which I think is super funny. But this is the sheep of the internet. This is all. I never not laugh when I see like a ton of dislikes on my comment and no likes or very few likes. And I'm like, yep, that's the sheep. That's the bandwagon right there for you. Even if they agree, right? It's the same thing either way. All right. So I'm not saying just because they disagree with me that they're sheep and whatever. It goes both ways. Okay, it goes both damn ways. And then somebody responded, remaster is touching up the original to make it look more streamlined and updated. Remake is when they literally remake the game. Yeah, see, I mean, this is what I'm talking about. This is the definition that people came up with. This was not a thing. And then somebody responded to them, so, you know, this is where you're wrong. Colossus on PS4. Oh, he was responding to another comment. Colossus on PS4 is still a remaster. It toes the line with the remake, but it's still a remaster. They use the original source code and then build from the ground up, thus keeping the game the same, but having a full go at update, animation, and all graphic details. Same with New Demon Souls. Now, Remake. Resident Evil remaking the game from ground up with the original in mind, but can change the pace, the flow, the combat, and story beats. Same is true for Final Fantasy and MGS Twin Snakes. See, you're confused yourself. And in my opinion, Mass Effect needed a full-blown remaster like Shadow or Demon Souls, and I would say they're doing that, but half-baked, if even that, yeah. You're correct in that they're doing a remaster, but more a type of remaster people hate and don't want anymore. Kind of like remastering an old vinyl for a CD. I don't agree with that. Like, so, I forget which specific point he said there that made me really go, you know what? I kind of get it. You know, in a small way, I kind of get it. And now, you know what it was? It was specifically, here, I'll tell you, specifically the combat. When they do updates to the combat, like, I'm like, all right, because if they do update the combat, like, slightly, right, they don't usually make drastic changes. They'll just make it smoother. They'll give you some better controls. So that's, in a sense, a remake. In a sense, right, if you were to technically think of the word remake. But isn't it the same as a remake? This is what I'm saying. This is why I said it earlier when I was talking about Final Fantasy VII, and I hadn't thought of that before. I'd never thought of that as my own argument, because I don't sit here when I think of these words, and I just wanted to talk about this topic because it's funny to me, man, and I never not get angry at how stupid people are over it, because it's just ridiculous. And one of the biggest reasons I get mad about it is because people use it to defend these stupid small things. For example, let me talk about one of my most favorite games real quick, because this got an HD upgrade that they called a remaster. It was Kingdoms of Amalur. And they did a small touch-up on the visuals, right? It was a little bit crisper, I guess. It's basically an HD version, right? It's an HD port. We took some textures, we upgraded it, and then here you go. We made it slightly better, and now we're calling it a remaster when it should just be called HD, or even, I mean, you don't even have to call it HD, just don't, I don't know. And here's the reason for this, all right? This is the reason I get offended. I get offended, like, and I'll never forget it, because my first experience with the remaster was Resident Evil on GameCube. It was the first remaster I can remember. Okay, now there might have been another one or whatever, but it was the first remaster that I was just blown away by it. I was like, holy crap, this is incredible. And the reason for that, one of the biggest reasons, was because the game didn't change. The game did not change. They made some minor improvements. There is a couple things that were a little off, but I don't know why they got it. I don't know if the models got changed and slightly bigger or whatever happened. And I'll describe it for you. Maybe you can tell me why. I remember in the original PlayStation version of the game, Resident Evil 1, before they even did Director's Cut. I never beat Director's Cut. I think I had rented it, but I never beat it because I had already beaten the living crap out of the original, and I don't remember why I didn't beat it. I don't remember. So in the original Resident Evil on PlayStation, you could literally, at a point, right? There was a point I reached, and I played it so much, man. I beat it. I played it start to finish, both Chris and Jill, so many times, that I eventually got down to beating it under an hour and a half. The entire game. I beat it in under an hour, and I'll never forget that. I probably have the save file somewhere on a memory card, like in a memory card in a drawer, you know, like if it still works, you know. But so during that time I played it, I learned a lot of stuff, man. I would run past enemies instead of killing them, you know. And there were so many halls and spots that you could literally just run right by the enemy. They could not interrupt you. You could just slide right by them. You know, you hug the wall and you just run, right? There's a lot of that. And then something I noticed immediately in the GameCube version was something changed about that. I don't know what exactly it was because everything looked exactly the same. Like, you know, as far as the layout, right? Same halls, same puzzles, same everything, except just way better graphics. Oh my gosh, such better graphics. Like, wow, I will never get over that, man, because it was such a huge, impressive, amazing thing. I was just like, holy crap, this is so cool. Especially because it was still one of my most favorite games of all time, you know? Like, I'll never forget it. And the first Resident Evil experience. And I remember too, like, people would talk about the controls all the time, how bad they were. They weren't bad. You just had to get used to them. You had to get used to them. That was it, man. People, and I can understand that now. If people talk about it right now, they're like, "Oh, I went to go play it. The controls are bad." They did update the controls to be a little more, I don't know. I guess it's third-person shooter style. You know, because they used to be known as tank controls, and the cool thing that I thought was cool about it is, you know, if you play the remake, you can choose to play the original tank controls, and that's how I play the game because that's how it's meant to be played. It was designed that way, you know. That's all. And I remember people argue all the time talking about how, oh, they had to do it that way because limitations of the system, and I don't know how true that is, but I can tell you off the top of my head, there's no way I would believe that for a second because the camera angles themselves. And maybe it was limitations, but they worked with it perfectly, like so perfectly. Because one of the reasons I like the first three and even Zero, and I never beat Code Veronica or Zero, but I played a bit of them. I think at that point I just gotten sick of Resident Evil. You know, I had my time with it and just loved it when I had it, and then after that I was like, all right, I'm done. But the camera angles, especially part one, it was just, that's what gave it the atmosphere. To me, the atmosphere of the camera angles and where the kind of vision that you had as a player was what gave it the atmosphere. This, on top of the sound effects and music, of course, you know. But what were you limited to see and how you could see it was kind of that. It also added to that spooky factor. You know, like it was so well directed, you know, and designed. It was just amazing. So yeah, as far as the way you play it, like it doesn't play like a third person shooter because it's not one. You know, you see your character as if you would see a third person character, but it's not. It is not a third person shooter game. You know, like. And that was actually like the biggest reason I thought of it as survival horror was because of that specific camera style. That's what really, like, it gave it so much, man. It gave it so much of that atmosphere. And I do like the newer ones. I don't hate them or anything, but I prefer the originals just specifically for that feeling. You know, that I don't know, man. It's different because, you know, especially when 4 came out, 4 to me was the downhill, and I didn't hate 4. I actually liked the story. I thought the story was really cool, but when it came to gameplay, I was like, what happened? This is no longer survival horror. Now it's just a zombie shooter game. You know, and it wasn't quite a zombie shooter game, and you didn't play it like an arcade. It still had those survival elements. You still had limited ammo, but it didn't feel the same at all, like at all. You know, it just didn't feel the same. It was no longer the same kind of game. So I understand the change. I don't disagree with them changing it, but I was upset. You know, another thing I thought was cool was when Resident Evil Revelations came out, and 1 and 2. And I still haven't beaten part 2. I always meant to, just haven't been in the mood, you know. But I actually liked it. I thought they did a really good job as far as since it was it still felt like a third-person shooter action game at this point. But I really liked the way they did the atmosphere and the music and everything. I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, so I got super off topic there as far as is related specifically to Resident Evil, which is, you know, I will never forget that game. Like, it is amazing, you know. So the remake HD stuff, I get so mad, especially, so the newest thing is Mass Effect, which I actually look forward to. Oh yeah, and I was talking about Kings of Amalur, and Kings of Amalur is called a remaster, but it's an HD port, man. This is just straight up, and I don't mean that to trash on the so-called remaster thing, but they didn't really do anything, you know. And I don't mean to undermine the work of the people who ported it and stuff, That's not what I'm. It's just not. It's like whatever, Like I'm glad I can play that game on my PS4 now because I couldn't before until they did that. So I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they ported it over. Like that's cool, man. But I'm not gonna go around being like defending like what little they did. That's what people do when they talk about remasters or remakes or what. I don't even know what the remake. I still confuse them because it'll never change for me in my mind. Okay, it'll just never change for me. Remaster and remake mean the same damn thing. People made up their own stupid definitions of them, and to me, it's a way to defend when developers do such little work and they're like, "Oh no, it's not a remake; it's a remaster." It's just like you idiots. So I'm very interested in Mass Effect. They actually have. I mean, it seems like they've done quite a bit. That like there's a lot of cool changes. I still personally I wouldn't call it a remaster. I really wouldn't, even with all the stuff they've done, and they've done quite a bit. They've done a lot of technical stuff. They even apparently rebalanced weapons, which is kind of interesting. But I personally do not think of it as a remaster. I think of it as an HD port. As like I said before too, I said this early on when I first started talking about HD ports. The HD ports, some of them also had gameplay improvements, right? They were doing an HD port, they upped the textures, and they also, any kind of simple gameplay mechanics that they could fix, they did. And that makes sense. It's kind of in the same sense to me. Just I don't know technically, right? But it sounds a lot to me like they were able to fix bugs they never fixed before. So they're not bugs, right? But I mean, they were able to polish stuff up. You know what I mean? Like since they're doing this new thing, they're doing this new technical port. They were able to also take the time and fix and to fine tune some stuff that they didn't fine tune before. That's what it sounded like to me. So, and I even, it's so weird. I don't want to say it in such a bad way because I'm not putting down the work that went into it. But when I will look, when you come to me and you say you did a remaster, I expect a freaking Resident Evil remaster. That's what I expect. You come at me with this HD port shit, and you can take that shit and shove it up your ass. I will play it, and I will enjoy it, but you don't call that a remaster, right? Shove it up your damn butt. It's like this automatic response I have, and it's not meant to be a jerk, right? Like I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm just mad. I'm just like, what the hell? Like what? And on top of that, like, why are people defending this shit and coming up with new definitions to make excuses? Like, why? What is the point of that? What? Come on. And again, it's like I said, like I plan to play Mass Effect Legendary Edition. I would love to buy it right away, release date, but I think I'll just rent it from GameFly instead. What a pain in the ass. Dealing with money right now. Oh my gosh, it just gets worse and worse. Anyways, so it took me many years. I didn't even beat the entire trilogy until like 2 years ago. I had played Mass Effect 1 and 2 and even 3. I had played each of these games. I checked, like, dude, they were hyped up so much, man, and I kept trying to play them, and I played like 5 hours each. And every time I played them, I didn't hate the games, but I was also bored. And they were just overhyped. And part of that is I wasn't in the mood. I couldn't have been in the mood at the time. I remember just being bored. And again, like I said, I didn't hate the games. I just was like, so I must have just not been in the mood, right? I tried though. I tried. I put a few hours into it. I didn't just play like a half hour. I put a few hours, dude. I got as far as I could before I was like, all right, I can't play this crap anymore. What made me go back to the trilogy though? Everybody's most favorite hated game, Mass Effect Andromeda, which I loved. Andromeda was literally the reason I went back and played the trilogy. I loved Andromeda, dude. I played it and I was like, dude, this game is so cool. I know there's not going to be a sequel because the entire damn internet hated the freaking game being stupid and blowing things out of proportion, which I talked about in my first episode. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go give the trilogy a deeper chance this time. And I did. I approached it with the patience, and I knew I would have to have it that time when I went back to Mass Effect 1. I knew I would have to have patience because I remembered it. And part of that is I've even talked about a little bit of that in my first episode is, long dialogues, and some of the dialogues are really boring. I think Mass Effect definitely is better than other games I've played with long dialogues, but there's still always a point where I'm just sick of talking. Like, please shut up already. Like, let me play. Yeah. So when I went back after Andromeda, I did play through the entire trilogy, one after the other, one right after the other, and I was really into it. I dug it, and then when I played all three games, and I think probably because I played all three of them so close to each other, I finally was like, oh, now I know why people say 2 is the best. Sorry. I don't know if you heard that, but I had a little hiccup burp. And so the thing about that's interesting to me is I loved 3. Oh man, dude. All right. So, and I had only read about the ending. I didn't know what the ending was. I had read whatever it was, the viral hate over the Mass Effect 3 ending and all that stuff. So I was curious. I kept thinking about it the whole time through the game, but I wasn't in a rush. I still took my time. I enjoyed it. I thought it was like, no, that was a cool ass game. But dude, the thing about Mass Effect 3 that's funny to me compared to 1 and 2 is how much faster it is, dude. It just never stops. You're just constantly running through that game and shooting stuff the whole time. And I was like, whoa. Because I actually like that. But it was too much, Like, I was like, damn, like, let me have a breath here. Like, holy crap. So it was interesting. And I think, like, normally I would like that. But I was just so... When I was playing through the trilogy as a trilogy, like I said, one after the other, like, it was such a change of pace that I was like, huh? But I did like it. I thought it was really cool, and I absolutely loved the ending. I don't even think I ever got around to playing the DLC. I think the version I had didn't have the DLC. I loved the ending, man. To me, it was perfect. And I was like, why would anybody complain about this? There's only one complaint I could think of. Only one complaint. It's the stupidest complaint ever. Is, oh, my choice didn't matter. Shut the fuck up with your choice. Shove that up your ass as well, you idiot. Like, fucking choice. My choice didn't matter. And I get wanting your choice to matter. I totally get that. But if you're going to be realistic, dude, there is literally no game ever made where your choices aren't eventually taken away from you. It's all an illusion, man. It's just a different script that leads to the same story, and that's great. Like, that's awesome. I love that. But unless, like, I mean, I guess they could have had different endings, because we've had games with different endings before. I didn't care because specifically, like, I'm all for games with different endings, right? Like, so that I get, like, that would be cool, yes. But I mean, specifically that was the end of their trilogy, right? Like, we knew that was gonna be the end of their story. So it makes sense that they would give you one ending. It just makes sense, right? If you think about it that way, right? Like, it has to end, right? And this is the way they're ending it. And it was freaking beautiful, man. It was beautiful. It was so good. Like, it was awesome. So I understand people were pissed that their choice didn't really matter because either choice you made was the same exact thing. And I thought that was weird too. I was like, then why bother giving you a choice, But it was slightly different, like audio, like I was like, I don't know, like, literally only your choice was different, right? The story still went the same way. And that's kind of the same with most choices in most of these games, right? Most of the time, right? There are games where you can maybe do some side stuff or a little different thing, but generally speaking, you always come to the same story, Now that I think about it, though, it would be cool to go back to some games that have different endings, like completely different stories. Man, that would be crazy, though, dude. I think it was easier for people to do games like that back then because those alternate endings were never actually, like, really good, Like, now, for example, I haven't seen all the Heavy Rain endings, but I do remember reading about it, and people would talk about how, like, there was one good ending. And I remember that for a lot of games that had multiple endings, like, there was always a favorite, right? I can't remember them all off the top of my head. It's been a long time since I played, like, a game with multiple endings. Heavy Rain was the only one I can remember off the top of my head, like, But there used to be other games with multiple endings, and they it wasn't like there was some amazing, incredible ending, right? Maybe you could tell me of one, like, I might be forgetting, or maybe I didn't play the game that you played that had, like, amazing different endings. But generally, I remember, like, most games that had different endings, it was such an insignificant, like, difference, It was just this minor, super small adjustment or something just stupid, you know. It was just like, what was the point of that? I'm sure you've seen those, right? I have no doubt you remember that. If you, you know, whatever. Anyways, if you played games, you know, if you're old like I am and you played those games, I bet you remember the same thing. You know, you're like, oh well, at least the option of a different ending is cool, for sure. It's cool. But the way that the ending of Mass Effect 3 was just, as always, blown out of proportion. It was good, man. It was so good. I especially loved every time Shepard had like those dreams, those visions. There were only a few, man, and I was like, dude, I want more of these. Those were so freaking cool. Oh, every time they popped, I was like, oh, I think there was like 3 or 4 that I can remember. There were so few. They were amazing. Every time I was like, holy crap, they got to make a whole game like this. You know, it was so good. I remember how I got into all that. That was, you know, too far off topic, but whatever. That, you know, Mass Effect. Anyways, I actually really do look forward to playing the Legendary Edition. It's such a weird thing because I remember in a simple way of putting it, like I probably even spoke like this of the original trilogy when I first played, especially the first 2. I was bored out of my mind. I kind of hated them. So I probably did at one point. I might have simplified it and said, I hate them, whatever, you know. But I don't know. I think I was past the point of saying I hate a game just because I didn't like it at that point. But I might have. I don't remember for sure. I do remember just not like. I just remember being bored out of my mind, man. It's mostly because of so much talking. Like I said, like there's gotta be a way to better balance these games. That's another thing I would love to talk about at some point and get a little bit deeper into talking about that, because this is another thing I've thought about so many times. It's just these developers and these storytellers gotta figure out a damn better way to pace their damn story without making me sit for half a fucking hour watching people talk to each other. Stop this now, son of a bitch, I wanna play! I say that, and what's funny about that, and I think it just depends on the game type too, right? I think Uncharted, for the most part, did a fair job. Each of those games did pretty fair on the pacing of the story and the gameplay. Uncharted 4 was the worst when it comes to pacing, for me personally, out of all 4 of those games. Actually, I never beat the standalone of that. I keep forgetting about that. The standalone for part 4, I have it, but I never beat it. But I keep forgetting about that one. But yeah, so between the first 3 and then the 4th game, like the 4th was easily the most poorly paced game. Like, oh my gosh, dude, it was so horrible how the pacing was. But the game itself was incredible. What an incredible game that was. As a one-time playthrough, it's so hard to go back in there and replay it because there's just so much talking, and if you just played it, you know. So it's cool that they have those missions that you can select and just go into the combat mission, but, you know, for me, I don't like doing that. Like, I'd rather do, like, challenge modes than go into a story combat mission that's connected to the story. I don't know, it was just, you know, that kind of, the specific way they did that mechanic is not something I'm a fan of. I think it is cool, though, that it's an option. But yeah, because I remember it was like a few months after I beat the 4th game, I was like, I want to go play it again. It was so good. And then I tried to go play it again. I was like, never mind, it's too soon. Like, because it's just so slow, man. It's so good, though. Like, it really is. And the funny thing to me about that, talking about Uncharted, what was I saying earlier? Like, earlier, I was talking about how, like, I actually agreed with people on Mass Effect 2 being the best of the trilogy. And I think it was just mostly the pacing in that. The pacing that they did was just so perfect. Almost, like, it was just almost perfection in comparison to 1 and 3. Like, 1 was much slower. I think 1 had more exploration, if I remember right, but it has been a while. But I really liked 1 when I finally got around to letting myself be patient and get into it, because it is pretty slow. And then 2 was man, the balance of that was so good, dude. It was just so good. And then 3 was just like I was saying, like, it's just super nonstop action. I was just like, holy crap. It was good, though. Like, it was really cool. And then for the Uncharted series, which I'll never not forget this, too, is, like, the fact that everybody's favorite is part 2, and my favorite is 3. As much as I loved 4, and 4 is absolutely incredible, I loved 3, man. 3 was just so freaking cool. And I still will never understand why people like 2 more than 3. I'm just like, 3 did everything 2 did, but better. So it makes no sense to me at all. and then a lot of the arguments I've seen in comments here and there, when people discuss it, they'd be like, oh, but Uncharted 2 was the first time they did it. And I was like, so what? Like 3 did everything 2 did but better. Like it was, oh man, I'll never get over that. It's so funny to me. Yeah. So I don't know. I try not to be like, oh, 3 is so much better than 2, because I don't think that way. I just think 3 is better than 2. You know, it just makes sense. Everything about it was literally enhanced. It was literally better. Like gameplay and story, the pacing, you know, was all so much better than 2 because it was a sequel, and that's how most sequels usually are. It's either that it's better or it's just as good. They're never worse. That's what pisses me off about the whole Uncharted argument is people will talk about how 3 is worse than 2, 2 is so much better than 3, and I'm like, no, this is just stupid. You are an idiot. You cannot make that a fair or sensible argument because there is no sense to it. Like, there just isn't. If you want to say they're just as good, fine. I'll allow you to have that. But you cannot tell me 2 is better than 3. That's just nonsense. But, you know, and of course it's opinion, right? Like, I know this. And this, I'm giving you my opinion. And I'm telling you you're wrong. I'm just kidding. I'm not saying. I'm only saying you're wrong if you think 2 is better than 3. If you liked 2 more than 3 because of personal reasons, that's cool. That makes far more sense than trying to argue that 2 was better than 3 because of the certain things, ways it did things. When, like I said, 3 did everything 2 did, but better. Like, everything is I'm just like, what the hell? And then what's funny, like I said, like 4 is easily the worst paced game. Man, it reminds me so much of the Last of Us games 1 and 2. Like, Uncharted 4 is so freaking slow. Oh my gosh, there's so many boring parts. And what's funny about that, there's so many boring parts, but the story is really good. Oh, that's why I got into that. Because I was talking about how, like, you know, pacing is a pain in the ass, right? Like, I've seen this because even Cyberpunk, like, well, not Cyberpunk, that's a bit different. But yeah, so that's why I always think this whenever I encounter a game like that has poor pacing. I'm like, how does this go so wrong? Like, how are they not playing their own game and seeing that this pacing is so far off? Like, how do you go from a half-hour cinematic to 5 minutes of gameplay to a 10-minute cinematic to 2 minutes of gameplay to a 20-minute cinematic to 15 minutes of gameplay, maybe, you know, right? Like, it's so poorly balanced most of the time. It's just ridiculous, man. Like, I started thinking about it too. I was like, you know, that kind of makes sense to me why, when they made Titanfall, the first Titanfall, how, like, they were like, oh, we're going to put the story in the multiplayer. Now, of course, it didn't work out very well. Also, I think the biggest reason for that is the story wasn't super deep. That's just the reality of it. But I thought it was cool as far as people said, oh, the story's bad. No, the story wasn't bad. It just wasn't a lot to it, you know. I thought it was cool as hell, though, the way they did it. There's another game I was trying to think of, too. There's you know, like every game, actually, like a lot of games, you'll be going through the world, and as you play it, you get the dialogue as you're playing it. So I think that would be better paced if they could balance that a bit more. To as you play the game, you're getting the story on top of cinematics not taking up too much time. And I love cinematics, dude. I love really good cinematics. I'm just sick of them being so long in between gameplay parts. You know what I mean? So I'm not against cinematics. Give me cool cinematics, but keep it to the point and don't drag it out. Like Destiny, since I got back into Destiny 2 recently, I had forgotten about this until I jumped back in and I was playing it again. I've been on a binge. I've been really into it. You know, I got back into it. This happens, you know, sometimes I'll binge a game. I'll quit it for a long time and then go back and play it again. And I love Destiny 2. It's really fun to jump in and play. I had forgotten about this. There are so many cinematics in Destiny 2 where you can literally just watch a character look at something. And it's beautiful, right? Like, it's so stupid because it's just such a waste of an artist's work where they don't do anything. It doesn't truly progress the story. There's no real point to that cinematic other than it being a cinematic. You know? It's so stupid, dude. It's like, come on, man. There are cool cinematics as well. But, you know, there are so many cinematics in that game specifically. They're just useless. And, you know, I'm not even, like, I don't want to offend the people that made that because they're beautiful. But they're useless. They're completely useless, man. Just like, son of a bitch, dude. If you're gonna make a cinematic, at least have it. Give it a point, you know. Like, freaking hell, man. I guess I'll have to name this podcast off of 2 topics. You know, I'm kind of glad that happened though, because there was a couple minutes here when I started, you know, earlier in the episode I was recording, and I was like, man, I don't think I'm gonna be able to drag out this HD or remake versus remaster thing. And that's what's kind of cool is the only reason I got into all this other stuff, you know, like I was just on Destiny 2 and then Uncharted and Mass Effect trilogy and all that, is because it's related. Well, Destiny 2 isn't, but you know, it just kind of led me into that, right? It's so funny, man. Freaking. It makes me so mad every time I see a cinematic like that. And I'm telling you, if you haven't played Destiny 2, Destiny 1 had them too. Both Destiny games have these, like, the cinematics are cool, but if you think about it, like, story-wise, it's just like, what the hell did I just watch? Like, it was so stupid and pointless. Like, I'm telling you, there's so many cinematics, and they're really short, you know, especially those specific cinematics. But like, a character will walk up to something, it'll walk up to the character in the cinematic, will walk up to a pedestal, and then look at it, and that's the cinematic, you know, like. They have this amazing music, you know, the visuals are gorgeous, and it's literally just a character walking up to something and looking at it, and then you go back into the game. It's so ridiculous, dude. Oh my gosh. Let me see if I had anything else to tack onto that. I know I had more to say, but I got super sidetracked because that. Now I'm just laughing. My head cannot stop laughing. My brain right now is just rolling on the floor, man. My brain is just, it's rolling, dude. It won't stop laughing. In my head, I can't stop laughing because it's hilarious. So anyways, the remake versus remaster, I can see why people would make stupid arguments, and I'm gonna tell you, look, they're stupid arguments. They are, because if you were really to this to me, all right, again, this is my viewpoint, my point of view. I'm not trying to state this like fact, okay? Just know this, please, okay? I'm not trying to state it like it's a fact. It's my point of view. So if I think something's stupid, I think it's stupid. But you know, I can always be proved wrong. I'm not against that. I like it. I like when I'm like, oh, thank you. Now I understand your point of view. Now I get it, because every other argument I've ever heard and seen is really incredibly stupid. So, you know, thank you. Thank you for making it make sense to me. You know? That's actually what I talk a little bit about when me and my sister talk politics. Like, she makes sense for things, like, even for other people's opinions, like, and even when she doesn't agree with them or whatever, she's able to make sense of it for me. And I'm just like, okay, that I can understand, like, kind of a thing. But, no, so the thing about the remake versus the remaster is, if you ever, like, for me anyways, when I read comments and I see the way people describe the differences between these two things, here's what I've already said this. They mean the same damn thing, okay? This is why it's funny to me, because every time I see someone talking about what it means to be a remake, and every time I see someone talking about what it means to be a remaster, they're always, every single time, there's something in one or the other argument that other people use in the same argument for the opposite. If you understand, right? They're talking about a remake. They say all the same exact things that somebody talks about a remaster, but they're using it from different perspectives. But they're both explaining the same thing. And you don't, like, you know, you won't see somebody arguing like that. But that's if you take, like, I read comments all the time. I love it. My favorite thing about reading articles is reading the comments. It's not for the drama. It's for the point of view. I love seeing the point of view. It's like I said, I'm looking for ways to understand. You know, and especially when they're specific articles with clickbait headlines. I usually avoid clickbait headlines. Like, I hate clickbait headlines. They are so disgusting. Especially because when you go read those stories, it's just a bunch of nonsense most of the time. I'm telling you, I don't even click on them anymore. But so what I do is I browse a site called N4G, and the reason I browse the site, the reason I first came across it, is because that's where you submit content as a writer, as a journalist. This is a very common website that everybody goes to. Literally every website that does gaming uses N4G. It's letter N, number 4G.com. And this is where I go and I just browse headlines. And there's a pending section too for where people submitted articles that haven't gone live yet. So everybody goes there. So, you know, and that's kind of what I use that's the main website I go to for any kind of gaming news. Has been for a long time. So, not only do I look at the comments there, but I look at the comments on websites that I actually do visit as well. But I like to get the different perspectives and whatever. And sometimes this stuff is just so stupid it makes me laugh. So in that sense, I actually go looking for a laugh instead of the drama. Like apparently, we all have our things. Like some people love drama; they look for the drama. I just look for something that I can laugh at. No, trust me, comments are the best place to look for laughs. But I mean, there's also really good perspectives and point of views, and that's actually my favorite thing about it because I love to go laugh at the comments, but I also really love seeing the different points of view in relation to that same thing. Especially because, like, I mean, if you remember from my first episode, I was talking about how, like, I feel like a damn super evil villain because I disagree with everybody on almost everything. And it's not on purpose. Like, I'm not trying to disagree with people on things. I'm not trying to. I just do, Like, I am not trying to be a bad guy. Like, I just don't agree with you. Like, damn it, man. Crap. I think I had another point, but I did get sidetracked there. I kind of went off a little bit, and that was fun. I hope you enjoyed it. I have yet to see. I like the different perspectives and the different arguments. I guess I can see for remake versus remaster, but I never agree with them. This is like what I'm saying. I'm just got done explaining that. Like I could see the arguments, and very rarely do they make sense. They're like there's like small parts that people say. I'm like, oh, I could see that. I could see that. But it's still, when it comes down to it, and the reason for this, the reason that I am stubborn in this specific topic is because I have that first experience, that Resident Evil Remaster experience. This was not called Resident Evil HD. It was not called Resident Evil Remake. It was called Resident Evil Remaster. And it was literally exactly the same game with better graphics. That's it. And they might have, like I said, they might have, like, they did a little bit of control stuff or whatever, right? Like, oh, I was looking for the cover right now. Even the Resident Evil on the GameCube, I couldn't remember for sure. I remember they referred to it as a remaster. But even the box for the GameCube doesn't say remaster or remake. I thought that's so weird because I remember them calling it a remaster back. Might have been like articles and interviews or something. It's so funny, dude. Oh my gosh. Anyways, yeah. So as far as the arguments, none of them they just don't make sense to me, dude. I'm like you don't have to make up a different definition for the word that's supposed to mean the same thing just because you're trying to defend the little bit that developers added to the game or updated. Because again, I said this earlier, like I appreciate that work and I'm really glad that I get to play these older games on my new system with some minor upgrades. Like I think that is cool. I think that's really cool. I remember I used to get upset, like a little upset, right? Like for example, real quick, Mass Effect Legendary Edition specifically. Like I'm sure. Look, I don't know. I'm sure some people disagree. I'm sure most people. I think I can't help but think this. I think most people probably would have preferred a true remaster, a true remake, whatever stupid word we want to call it here. And I'm not talking about like changing the game. I'm talking about Halo style. They didn't even call that a remake or remaster, right? They just called it a Master Chief Edition. I forgot. I was thinking about this before I started the podcast. It was earlier. I had company over and I got all sidetracked and distracted. And then I forgot a lot of stuff I was going to say. Halo was one of them. I'll never forget. I loved the Halo Master Chief where when you play through part 1, I think only part 1 had it. I can't remember if two had it. But when you just tap the select button, and whatever the button's called now, you just tap the button and you could instantly swap between the original Halo and the revamped one. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. The audio as well, like incredible. Oh, such an incredible difference. And the fact that you got to see the difference live at the press of a button, dude, mind blowing. Like just amazing. And that's the kind of remaster, remake, whatever that I would have much preferred for Mass Effect 1. And I would have preferred the same for part 2 and 3. I think 3 is probably too new to see that kind of a drastic improvement. Like, I'm sure they could do it, right? But I don't think it would be as necessary as 1 specifically. And 2 as well, like, you know, these aren't ugly games or anything. 1 definitely would have benefited far more, you know, far more from like a full remaster or remake. What the hell ever, dude, you know? Part 1 specifically would have benefited way more. But I think it would have been awesome to see it as well in 2 and 3. You know, so I'm not. I look forward to playing the Legendary Edition, but I'm not half as hyped as I would be if they had done a true remake. God, I hate even saying the word remake. I'm calling it all remaster. I don't care. Call it whatever the hell you want. I'm saying remaster. All right. But I think it would have been. I would have been far more hyped. So I'm excited. I can't wait to play it again, especially as a, you know, a 1-game bundle kind of a thing. You know, although they had that on PS3. That's actually the version I have on PS3. I think, I don't know. I don't remember. You know, but eventually they had bundled the 3 games together, you know. So yeah, no, I think that's cool for the new gen systems, you know. I'm not nearly as excited. Not even, God, dude, I would be, dude. How excited would you be, right? Wouldn't it blow your mind if you saw like a Resident Evil, the original Resident Evil kind of a remaster or whatever of the original? Wouldn't that kind of difference? Wouldn't that blow your mind to see Mass Effect be like that? Dude. Man. My head would explode from the awesome of that. But no, we get this HD port, you know. And again, this specific port, before I end this episode and people get too upset with me over that, right? They did put a lot of work. There's a lot of fixes, right? There's a lot of updates. Like I said, I mean, they did mention, I think in each of the games too, they did some weapon balancing, which I was just like, that just sounds like something they just decided to note. Because like... I never noticed any reason. Like, I can't remember every time of thinking, oh, they should rebalance these weapons. Like, I never felt that way playing through any of those games. So I'm just like, why? That's what I was thinking when they were like, we rebalance weapons. I was like, what the hell for? But you know, they did do like a lot of little things, right? Like a lot of these things they put in there. But I still am disappointed. You know, I can't help it. I can't help it. So anyways, thanks for listening. And if you have any comments, I hope you saved them for me. Right now, this specific episode, this podcast is on YouTube only at the moment. I'm planning to get around to getting it on other websites. But for now, it's only on YouTube. But if you, so yeah, I mean, I'm currently on Facebook, banned from Twitter for talking about food because Twitter is stupid. And I'm on Discord, Twitch. I'm not actively streaming at the moment. I haven't streamed in a little while, but you know, send me a message or leave a comment. I'm very curious. You might have some comments that will make sense to me, and I would appreciate that. Or reminders, you know, reminders or clarification. Let me know what's up. Thank you very much for listening, and hopefully talk to you soon. Have a good day. Bye.